Okay, it's going live.
I don't see it. All I see is a watch here.
It's setting up, done,
I see it.
redirecting.
I see it. Yep. Cool.
It's there, Domi.
It's there. Cool.
Notice everybody seems to be as old as I am. Be as old as I am.
You see it?
Nope.
I see it. It's showing four people.
Yeah, you'd have to click on watch live video.
Be as old as I am.
Oh, okay.
Do you see the what do you see? I'm seeing two screens here, so I don't know what you're seeing.
Four people.
Yeah, you'd have to click on watch live video. Well, the delay's about a minute.
Wow. Do you see? I'm seeing two screens.
I don't see it.
All right. Whoever's got their mic on, you may want to lower your mic because it's if you're on Facebook and Zoom, it's coming through. It's echoing like a minute delay.
Domi, we make co-host.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I'm not seeing it, Domi.
Hang on.
Co-host.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I'm not seeing it, Domi.
John, you are now co-host.
Thank you.
Sorry. And let me start recording. Record. Record to this computer. And we are recording.
How did I get on Facebook?
Do you have an account, John?
Yeah, but I'm looking for
I'm looking at the delay.
what's the other site?
Mid-Atlantic Antique Radio Club on
No.
Facebook.
What's the main site? Not Mid-Atlantic, but Facebook. Is that right? Facebook?
Yeah, it's facebook.com, I think.
Hang on a minute. Okay, I got Facebook up here.
Well, John, if you're going to stay on Zoom, you don't need to be on Facebook right now.
I just want to see if I could get it, but I'm not getting it.
I see it. I don't know if I turn off my blur.
Yeah, it's definitely working,
Yeah.
Domi. I've got it up on mine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
I'm
got
showing
it
it there.
If
Like
anybody,
looking in a mirror.
The usual setting up a Zoom.
if you have Facebook doing it now, please mute it.
Yeah. Or else it'll come across here. So, John, we are recording and live on Facebook.
All right. 21st century has arrived for the Antique Radio Club.
And we'll go 3D holograph next.
We have to buy
Holograms.
we have to get some special tubes for that, though.
Yeah, it took 100 years for us to get this far. Okay, got it.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, how you doing, guys?
We're good. We're having fun.
Nice. Well, we should be having fun. If you haven't had fun by now, you missed out on life.
We're having more fun then.
I give up. I can't find it.
Is it going to be a short show and tell session?
It looks like it.
Okay. If you want another 3 minutes, I can toss in something.
Yeah, we could do that. That would be nice.
I want to add some audio to mine, Domi, when you get ready to roll it.
Thank you, Robert. That's a good, thank you. You always show nice stuff with good presentation. We appreciate it.
Time will tell. Why?
Yeah, Randy, I think John also has a show and tell from remnants from last month.
You've got it.
Okay, that's great.
Domi has
Oh.
it.
Okay, you want me to?
Yeah, because I have no success in rolling it from here.
Okay. I'm glad you said something.
I thought you knew that.
Oh, oh, don't assume anything.
That's why I sent you the DVD.
Hi, everybody. How y'all? This is yours truly, Alan Freed, welcoming you to Big Beat once again on radio. Every night at 10. And of course, as usual, we're going to be playing all of your favorite records and mine. But tonight, we're going to have another new first.
Okay, ready.
I want to find a fine new voice with a new beat and a new sound. A singer that we wanted to call Johnny Melody.
Are you playing? Who's playing that?
Listen to me, so why should I listen to him?
All right, then, let's just sit here and breathe.
But you promised your folks you were going to drive me home. Be like,
Ah, good.
Man, I wish we were having a swap meet out in the parking lot at Davidsonville today.
It would be
Yeah.
nice.
Nice out there.
Someone had mentioned that there's a possibility in June. Well, with the quick ramp up in vaccination.
Vaccines. Yeah. Hey, I just got mine just an hour ago.
One shot or two?
One, or
Okay.
the two-shotter. The first one.
Okay, yeah, I got mine 2 weeks ago, the one shotter.
All right.
Yeah,
The
same.
J&J.
2 weeks ago.
J&J, right.
Domi, if you
And
get
then
back-
right after that, they asked me, I got an email, we can set you up for the two-shotter. And then I got an email a couple days ago from the university. We're ready to start vaccinating those who are over 65. So it's coming out there quite rapidly, it seems like.
May I ask who is 410-404-0209?
It's Hale.
Hale, okay. If I may, I'm going to rename you.
Okay, sure.
Hey, Charlie. How you doing? I'm doing great. They're keeping me busier than a long-tail cat in a rocking chair factory at a school.
Hey, Randy, are you doing virtual or in person or both? Joanne?
Both, but primarily it is in person.
Oh, really? How
Yes,
have
so I
they,
generally have about 20 students in the lab
in the
doing
lab? Are they social distancing?
as best they can. Yes, they've been pretty responsible. I've been tested. I get tested every week, and we've had nobody catch COVID. I haven't had the COVID. And
Okay.
now that I'm vaccinated, I should be not getting any serious effects from it.
What do you teach again, Randy?
I teach basic electronics to bioengineering students.
Uh-huh. And where do you
It's like trying to teach a Jamaican how to make a snowball.
You gotta be kidding.
These people have absolutely no electronics experience at all.
None at all. Oh my
Not-
gosh. Where do you teach? What school?
George Mason University.
Oh, George Mason. All right.
The electrical engineering department.
It's the electrical engineering department, of course, right?
No, it's the bioengineering department.
Oh, the bioengineering department. Okay. All right. Now, these are all questions. Some of them are from Roy because he's a little shy.
That's okay. No worries.
All right. Hi, John.
Hi, Joanna.
I'm a little shy too. I just have my picture up there so you know who it is.
We see your gorgeous picture.
Oh, you're great. I'm going to see what my video looks like. I just got up. Let's see what my video looks like. Oh, the light's not too good. Okay. I'm going to switch back.
So Charlie, have you got your vaccines yet?
Lost a lot of weight.
So does that mean we can get together for lunch sometime?
Hey, Charlie, you've lost a lot of weight. What have you been doing? Running around the house for exercise? I see your smile. Tell me what you've been doing.
A lot of
losing
walking.
weight. He's keeping a secret. You're muted, Charlie.
Charlie, I put you on mute, Charlie, because you were getting a lot of feedback when you come on. You can unmute and try again. Or you can leave.
I don't think you like your suggestion, John.
Please, Charlie, come back.
Yes, Charlie taught at Northern Virginia Community College for many years, and I would see him there when I was taking my classes 6-7 years ago.
Oh, what kind of classes were you taking?
Electrical engineering and geology.
Interesting. Bedfellows.
Yeah, right now I'm taking some classes while I work because I get free tuition for one class per semester, and I'm working on my degree in astrophysics.
Wow, I am impressed. Why
It's
did you choose astrophysics? I mean, it's an interesting subject, I would think.
yes, I had taken a class in planetary geology with a number of students, and he and I have decided to be the first people to Mars, even if it is one way. We're just waiting for Elon Musk to shoot us an email.
I always thought you were from Mars, though, Randy.
Exactly. I need to get back home.
Okay, you gotta get back home. All right.
Well, we'll try to have our technology set up so that you can join a MAARC meeting from Mars when you get there.
There'll be an 8-minute delay, and
Well, they're old radios, so 8 more minutes, what's it matter?
Who's going to handle shipping for the auctions to Mars?
Mark, I think that Domi said he had that. No?
No, that's Eric.
Oh, Eric, that's right, Eric.
Mars might be extra.
An extra, well, okay, I think I can handle it.
No, we'll have USPS do the shipping, and if it doesn't get there, we'll blame it on them.
Well, maybe I don't want to get it in pieces. I was hoping I'd get the whole set together.
Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes. I think there's still some people signing on.
Okay.
Send it United States Parcel Smashers.
Talking about that, I just did recently receive a MAARC newsletter this week.
If that is.
Which issue?
It's the March issue with Ed Lyon's article on railway communications.
I got February last week.
I don't think I've gotten February.
Yeah. I got February as well, but I haven't seen March.
Yeah,
I
I
got-
got January and February, but it came a month later.
I got one that I downloaded and printed out. I don't know which one that was.
Now that's a guy who's thinking. That's the way to do it.
Hey, Domi, I never got January or December's even. But
I
I
don't
did go online and downloaded them. So that's a great idea to do that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody got December.
Wow.
Okay, Charlie, you ready to start the countdown?
Do I come out okay now?
You sound perfect.
Okay, what happened was the built-in mic apparently is picking up noise from a noisy fan bearing. It's one of the things is still running, so that's why when I plugged in this this mic there, so I better do it. I'm tolerable now. I ain't being a pariah. Yeah, I tell you, somebody wanted to know what's happening today, and I said Randy's talking about Nazi stereo there, so it's cool. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna get out of here now.
Well, it's good to see you, Charlie, and everybody else. Let's get this thing rolling. So, Domi, you could start recording. We've already started recording. So just an announcement to everybody, this meeting is being recorded. So if you don't want your face to show or your voice to show, turn it off, go on mute and turn off your video. And if the FBI is after you anyway, they're going to find you somehow. It's good to see everybody. I'm sorry that we can't be together yet for the obvious reasons of COVID, but it's good to see so many familiar faces and some new faces. We invited the Antique Radio Club of Illinois to join us today. They sent out an e-blast to their memberships. So do we have, how many of you all are from MAARC? There's a couple. Well, good. Well, why don't you introduce yourselves, give us your name, and tell us what kind of radio stuff you're interested in. Don, you go ahead.
Okay, am I on?
Yes.
Yeah, Don Schenbarger. I'm an Archie, and I got their email, so I was interested in the history of stereo, and I thought I'd give this a listen. Thank you.
Well, good. Glad to have you here, Don. Matt's here. Go ahead.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm also a MAARC member, so I'm not sure if I count for this round, but.
Good day. What do you collect, Matt? I can't remember.
What do I collect? As my wife would say, I'm not that discriminating. Test equipment. I like to restore VTVMs, old signal generators and such. Mostly 1935 or 6 or so after. I've only got one 20s TRF that I'm in the middle of working on.
Oh, good. Glad to have you here. Hey, Carlos is here all the way from Brazil. Good to see you.
Hey,
buddy.
John.
Hey,
Carlos. Hey,
How are things down in Brazil?
nice to be here with you guys.
Good to have you here.
Carlos.
Do we have any other Archie guys here?
I'm an Archie guy. I've been a member of Archie since the 90s. I'm a past employee of Zenith. I worked for them for 20 years. I also worked for Tektronix, and I also worked for Harris for a while as well. I collect, obviously, a lot of Zenith stuff since it's near and dear to me. And when I was a teenager, I worked for Allied Radio, and I suppose some of you guys probably remember Allied Radio. Built a lot of night kits along the way.
Good. Good to have you with us, Bill. Thanks for coming. Who else? Steve Muchow.
Yeah, I'm an Archie member. Not so much collecting, but do enjoy restoration and just appreciate the
Brian Klein.
videos.
Good, glad you joined us. Steve Thompson.
I've been a MAARC member for, I think 3 years now, and I live in Bowie, Maryland and Kansas, and I'm interested in military radios. I have some Keith kits and all kinds of things, test equipment, vintage audio. So I'm glad to be here, really glad to be with this group.
Good to have you. Any others here for the first time? Wave your hand so I can.
Mark Goodwin.
Go ahead.
I'm an ARCI member, only been a member for about 3 years. I've been going to the radio fests and I know a number of the members there that have I'm also a member of the Michigan Antique Radio Club, and they've come to our extravaganza meets in the summer. So I decided to join, and I've enjoyed the radio fest much. Wish they would get it going again. And I collect our Supreme RC and Philco radios. I'm into military stuff, boat anchors, stuff related to amateur radio vintage equipment. That's primary interest.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Dave Rudinger.
David Rudinger. I'm a member technically of the Antique Radio Club of Schenectady, but I've been attending the ARCI meetings for a while here. And my interest is typically radios from the 30s and 40s, but right now I'm working on a couple of Fried Eisenman radios, and they're trying to get the power supplies to power them.
Glad to hear. Maybe somebody can offer you a power supply when we chat at the end of the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're hoping that we can all be together in person again as soon as possible. We're keeping track of the county regulations and state regulations. We encourage everybody to get vaccinated as soon as possible. The good news and the bad news is that the average age of a MAARC member is 86 and a half. So we all fit in the 1A category in Maryland. I'm just now eligible, actually, and I'm waiting for that call. We've had to cancel radioactivity.
Bye.
We've canceled radioactivity for this year because we are still uncertain on when we'll be allowed to have the kinds of meetings we have. But we are we're pretty sure we'll be able to do Fall Fest in October, and we expect we'll have a big auction there. That's what we do in October every year. We have a meeting with no program and a huge auction that includes the typical radio stuff that we have. Also, hi-fi stuff shows up. A lot of ham stuff shows up. So keep that on your calendar for the third week in October.
John, your volume seems to be a little low. Can you speak up a little bit more? At least for me it is.
I'll come a little close. Oh, open this.
Come a little closer.
No comment. So another thing.
Wow, that's much better. Thanks, John.
Okay. I opened up my microphone. We have we do stay in touch through Radio Age, but as some people have been discussing already today, a lot of Radio Ages from December, January, and February did not get through. We're afraid they are stuck somewhere in the ether of the USPS. We're talking to the post office, trying to figure out what they did with them, because they certainly didn't deliver most of them. You can, however, see them, you get them in a PDF file at maarc.org on the front page. There were so many people most people did not get them, so we have PDFs up there. March delivery seems to be going all right, so keep your fingers crossed that will continue. But if you go to maarc.org on the first page, you can get the PDFs of ones that you didn't get. Another thing we're doing to keep in touch is we do have a online, I guess you'd call it a chat list at groups.io. We used to have one at Yahoo, but Yahoo stopped supporting all groups. So if you would like to join the MAARC group, and it's just, people send notices of all sorts of things. They're looking for something, they have something. send an email to MAARC Group, MAARC Group, +sign subscribe at groups.io. That's how to subscribe to it. MAARC Groups +subscribe at groups, plural.io, and they'll send you information. I get lots, as president, I get lots of notices about auctions of, regular commercial estate auctions. And when I get those, I'll post the email up there at groups.io. There's one that I just posted today that has some gorgeous radios in it. I have no idea where they'll go for it, and you'll have to figure out how to get them home. But most of them are from the New York City area in that particular one, but there's some amazing radios in that auction.
John, I apologize, but what was that? Is that a Facebook group or is that a website you were telling us about, Mark?
That's a list.
Put it in the chat box. Put it in the chat box, please.
Oh, yeah, Domi, would you enter that? Would you put that in, please? So I can keep talking.
We always want you to keep talking, John.
Domi will put it in the chat list. Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Yeah,
suggesting
John, can you say it one more time? MAARC?
Yes, MAARC Group +sign subscribe at groups, plural.io. No charge, no cost. We've got 40, 50 men. We just created that, I think in December. We've got about 50 people up there so far, and they have interesting.
Subscribe. Well, I didn't get the rest of it.
And you, Archie guys are welcome to join that too.
Here's the rest.
Can you verify that?
Okay, let me take a quick look. That's you forgot to put in the subscribe. It's +subscribe to subscribe, and then when you want to send a message, it's just you just send it to MAARC Group at groups.io. Okay, I'll type it in.
I think I got it.
Yes, that one that Domi just put in, that's correct.
Okay.
There's a
So-
plus sign in it?
So that's just so John, that's just an email for you.
It's a place where you can send if you send one email to that, it will send it to everybody who's on the group.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Is the plus sign in the?
Yes, it is.
And when you want to send a message, you just send it to MAARC Group at groups.io after you're subscribed. The other thing I want to mention is next week, our presentation will be by Jeff Shear. It'll be about replacing resistance line cords. Those are hard to find these days, and the ones on the old radios are usually in bad shape. So he's going to show how to do that. There's an article on that same topic in the March Radio Age with some tips from Ed Lyon, very useful tips on how to, what to do if you have to replace a line cord, resistance line cord. I never have to do that because I collect FM radios and haven't yet found one that has a resistance cord. So now I'm going to turn it over to Randy Warren, who is doing dual duty this month. He is regularly our MC for the show and tell, and he's also our presenter. So Randy, take it away.
Okay, thank you, John. We have a couple of show and tells today. I think the first one is going to be the gentleman from last month. Domi, can you get his presentation up?
And we want to thank John Bauer for the extra effort he had to do to get this one up and working.
Thank you. I'm a tech dummy, so I had problems with it. But Domi's going to roll it. Domi's going to roll it. I keep mispronouncing his name. Sorry about that.
Hang on, let me share the screen here and make sure that you guys can see it. Hold on, stop share again. Hang on. Let me a lot of screens are popped up here, and I'm going to make sure I am sharing the right screen.
You had the right one up there before a minute ago.
Yeah, share sound. Hold on, share sound. And I'm going to share PowerPoint and share this. There we go.
Hello, and welcome to my segment of Show and Tell. This is John Bauer, and I'd like to show you a few of the items in my collection which were built by Hallicrafters. This is a Hallicrafter model HTR 262. It's
We lost audio, Domi.
Okay, hang on.
This is a Hallicrafter model HTR 262. It's shown in an inventory photograph from the collection. The next photo will show the reverse of the same model, but it's a picture of another unit I picked up at Hamfest. I simply can't find the original radio in all my junk, but I hope too soon. It looks like any other portable radio, but I hope too soon. It looks like any other portable radio, but as seen in this review, the radio looks the same as on one side as it does on the other. It features a transverse. What'd you do, Domi? In this review, the radio looks the same as on one side as it does on the other. It features a transverse dial, meaning that the frequency readout is the same on both sides at the same time. The main difference is that the 6x90 speaker is only mounted on one side of the cabinet. This huge speaker was the largest of any portable of the time. Later boomboxes had larger speakers. This is a shot of the transverse dial. If you pick the radio up and turn it around, you see the same reading on the other side. This next shot will show a picture of the dial looking down on the radio. You'll have to forgive the reflection, but it's the same on both sides at the same time. Inside, the radio had 6 plug-in transistors and an IF frequency of 455 kilohertz. It was powered by 2 4.5 volt batteries, and of course, this huge 6x9 speaker. The radio was built by Hallicrafters Canada, as were many of what I like to call entertainment radios. Here are a few of what I like to call entertainment radios. Most of them were built by Hallicrafters Canada or Majestic of Canada. Both companies also produced a few S38s, S40Bs, S77s, and other radios, both for the consumer and for the amateur. The Hallicrafters SR75 was a rare breed of cat. It was manufactured in 1950 and 1951 and was intended for the novice operator. It sold for $79.95 and was one of the first transceivers on the market. It was rated at 10 watts input to a 50L6, if you can believe that, which also doubled as an audio output tube. This in turn was driven by a 12BA6, which is long for the ride when receiving. The output power was a nominal 4 to 7 watts depending on the band, antenna type, and SWR. It covered 80 through 10 meters depending on the coil and crystal used. The receiver section is basically an S38B, but the chassis was punched for an S38. And a matter of fact, there's a bracket punched for the S38 noise limiter, which is present in the SR75, but is not populated. In this close-up of the transmit-receive switch, you'll see it actually says transmit and receive. On the S38s and the S38B, the switch is labeled receive and standby. Depending on how the SR75's line cord was connected to the convenience outlet, the rig could become a do-it-to-yourself electrocution box. This was because it had no power transformer and could be accidentally connected to one side of the line depending on which way the plug was inserted into the wall. For that reason, a keying relay was employed, and it was powered by a pair of D cells, which were on board and ensured that no more than 3 volts appeared across the key at any one time. Changing frequencies or bands on the SR75 could be a daunting task. The first thing you had to do was remove the interlock cover, which in itself could be a pain because the transmit tune-up knobs may or may not have to be removed. Second thing you had to do was remove several tubes in order to get access to the crystal socket and the coil. This was best done after the rig had cooled down or from a cold start. This is the SR75 rear panel. Interlock is shown, as well as the band switch, oscillator tuning, amplifier tuning, and loading controls for the transmitter. This made the rig a bit of a bear to tune up. The key and meter jack was supplied with a plug from the factory. This plug terminated in pigtails, and the operator could select either a meter or a lamp as a tuning indicator. For the A1, A2, and ground connections, they are the standard receiver connections for the S38 series. The problem being that the ground connection was grounded through a 0.01 capacitor. This could mean big trouble if the capacitor shorted out. This is a Hallicrafter's TW55. It was not a very popular model because the cabinet and the power supply were plastic and easily broken. As a matter of fact, I managed to drop this rig in getting ready for a photo session, and I cracked a dial. So if anybody's got a dial or an old radio TW55 that I might buy from them, I'd be glad to do it at this point. The radio was powered in a portable stage by a 45-volt battery and a 1.5-volt battery. This picture shows the TW55 sitting on the power supply, which was included with the radio. It's an AC supply and powered by 110 volt. This view shows the power supply with the receiver removed. The power plug connection to the receiver was provided by the connector in the upper right-hand corner. You'll notice in the left-hand corner is a switch for the AC supply, which turned on or off the supply itself, but not the receiver, which had its own separate switch. Here's another shot of the TW55 power supply showing the AC on-off switch. This is a bottom view of the power supply with the cover removed. Notice the little blade holders holding the fuse in the lower left-hand corner. This is a view of the power supply with the cover temporarily in place. Notice the deteriorated feet. Thank you for your attention to my show and tell presentation. I'll be glad to try and answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Domi. Sure thing. And back to Randy.
Thanks, John.
Yes, nice job, John. That was very interesting. I enjoyed that.
It was worth the wait.
Yes, indeed. So now that we've waited a little bit, let's have Brian Belanger. He's coming up next to do a show and tell as well.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Let me get my PowerPoint up here and hopefully everybody will be able to see it here. Can you see that, Randy?
Not yet. All I see is John's
Oh, wait,
face.
I haven't shared my screen properly. Hang on. Hang on a minute. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a very interesting radio. Like all the rest of us, I've been stuck at home for the past year. I haven't gone anywhere, so I've had a lot of time in my workshop to work on radios and got more radios fixed in the last year than in the previous decade. And this turned out to be a particularly interesting one. It's been sitting on my shelf for probably about 15 years, and I never really looked at it carefully. It's a 1932 Model 9A from US Radio and Television. And when I took it off the shelf to work on it, I got the rider manual out, and I was surprised when I looked at it. It was a sort of a conventional superhet with a 262 kilohertz IF. But right in the middle of the schematic, there's this type 57 tube. And so I'm thinking to myself, what's that 57 tube for? Well, it was part of the AVC circuit, and it appeared that the type 57 tube was amplifying the AVC voltage. And I'd never seen a radio before that had amplified AVC, so I took out my copy of Girardi's Modern Radio Servicing from 1935, which is, by the way, a really good book about early 30s radio servicing. And sure enough, Girardi explains that there were a number of radios in that era that used amplified ABC. But what's really unusual is not only does it have amplified ABC, but on the front panel, it has a knob that is an ABC control. The user can control the ABC action with a front panel control. It also has push-pull 46s wired as trios, which is a little bit out of the ordinary. So here's what the front escutcheon looks like. And up at the top, you see the regular tuning dial with a little arrow that moves back and forth. On the lower left, you see there's a volume control dial there. And on the right, there's a tone control dial. And right in the center is a control labeled AVC. So I did the usual restoration. I put in new, replaced the electrolytics and the wax paper capacitors. A bunch of resistors are out of spec, or changed the out of spec resistors. And after a realignment, the radio played very well and sounded good. And so I was wondering, how does that AVC control work? Well, when you set the AVC control for 0, you tune up and down the dial, and all you hear are the strong local stations, and it's absolutely quiet between stations. So it's like having a squelch control between stations. And if you turn the ABC control all the way up to the other end to 5, now you tune up and down the dial, and you hear all the weak stations and all the RF noise between stations. So the sensitivity is wide open. And so it's, in a sense, it's kind of like a continuously variable local distance control. It's the first radio I've ever encountered with a user-operated AVC control, and I decided after using it for a while, it's actually kind of a nice feature. If you're just using it for local stations, you set it at 0 and you have that squelch control. And if you want a DX on it, you set it at the other end, and now you pick up everything. So a very unusual radio, and certainly a fun one to work on. So that's it.
Thank you, Brian. By the way, did you pick this up at a MAARC meet by any chance?
Yeah, I got this at a MAARC meeting probably 15 years ago.
I would think after this one, a couple of people will be looking for that radio.
Yeah, it was certainly very interesting.
Indeed. Thank you for that presentation. So Robert Lozier, you indicated you would have one for us. Oh, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Can you see that, Brian? Tim Carey was asking who manufactured that radio?
It's US Radio and Television.
Where were they out of?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to the final show and tell? Well, I guess we'll go on to Robert Lozier's show and tell then.
All right, thank you. And so you see full screen there?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to show you a set made in New Zealand beginning in 1958, and stay with me. There is an American connection. The set was made by the largest maker in New Zealand and called Collier and Beale Limited, and was branded as the pacemaker model 5155, meaning it had 5 valves, 1 band, and it was the 1955 model year. A total of 5,000 were made through the end of 1957 model year. This advert calls it the Pacemaker Petite. The chassis is as compact as the Motorola 52R and 53R and feature a standard 5-valve chassis using American-type miniature tubes. New Zealand uses 240-volt mains, and they solve the tube filament requirements using a 3-terminal auto transformer, and the mains was half-wave rectified for the high tension. Why is the chassis black? I got an answer for that. It is a thoroughly unique radio chassis. It is molded in black Bakelite. Philips and Zenith and maybe others molded Bakelite chassis just before World War II with good to disastrous results. But they did not take the wiring approach used here. The panel has Bakelite walls and posts to permit wiring the entire chassis with bare wire. A few wraps of wire around a post forms a termination point. The walls allow the bare wires to cross over other circuits. New Zealand and Australian sets, like many other countries, use some form of stationized dial markings. There was not enough room on this dial for the scheme, so they provided frequency information on the back. Since this radio only had an auto transformer, it was still a hot chassis set and needed a fully protected back cover. This pacemaker, let me see, whoops. Yeah, this pacemaker is obviously a slightly reworked die used to mold the Motorola 53R. Since their New Zealand market was so small, it made perfect sense to use dies producing other products. For some unknown reason, Motorola appears to have used this cabinet for only 1 model year. Why was that? I'd like to know. So by 1955, there were no competition issues, I would think. I don't have a 53R in my collection. It would be neat to have one if I could get one for not a lot of money. The next pacemaker, their 1958 model, would have a printed circuit board in it. So that's my oddball of the day, and I return things to your regularly scheduled crisis.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions?
Hey, Robert, this is Steve.
Yeah.
If I read it properly, it looked like on the back panel of that radio, there was an external speaker connection and it said 5,000 ohms. Is that right?
Actually, let's see, now I've cleared that out, but whoops. Actually, that's not an external speaker. That's just showing you the speaker that's in the cabinet. And the 5,000 ohms is because the output transformer is mounted on the speaker frame.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, next.
All right. This would be a good opportunity to flog our book that Mark had printed, the Roycroft book on the being a repairman. Roycroft himself was from New Zealand.
Correct.
So if you haven't read that, it's a great read, and you can find out more about that on the MAARC website. So at this point, I guess show and tell is done. Do I jump right into what I'm going to present today, Domi?
Yeah, that would be the right transition point.
Okay. So now let's see if we can figure out how to do this again. I'm going to need to share. You're going to allow me to share my screen. And let's see, we've got it right here. And if I can get it to begin. All right, let's see how well this works out. So today I'm going to be speaking about the birth of stereo recording. First thing I wanted to do is acknowledge receiving several emails from some of our members. I appreciate that. And they were discussing that since in the email blast I indicated this would be dealing with the Nazi era development of stereo recording, that stereo actually has an earlier genesis. However, I would indicate that while all of those may have also been earlier versions of stereo, they themselves did not result in a birthing. They did not create an industry that is alive and well to this very day of recording music and presenting it to the public. Certainly some of the earlier ones like film of recordings where they made a couple of stereo recordings, that did not last for very long before they reverted back to mono, and this would have been pre-war. Also, none of it was commercially available to the average person who could go down to a local record store and buy a recording of Fantasia in stereo. The technology wasn't developed, and it really wasn't something that you could easily get your hands on. So with that being said, here's a picture from one of the recording sessions that was done in Germany. This is Wilhelm Furtwängler, famous German conductor. He's also doing, as you can see, he is in front of a large group of people. Most of these recordings that were being done were done live. There were very few in the way of studio recordings, which did not have an audience present. Excuse me. So first thing I wanted to talk about, excuse me, is what is stereophonic sound? Because a lot of what people think of as stereo really isn't, or most people who have had a stereo have never heard what stereo sounds like. While most people have probably had a sound system with two speakers, it has to be properly set up to retrieve all the ambient information that is present in the recorded signal. And this is part of the reason why some of the earlier stereo experiments aren't, in my view, true stereo, because the frequency response necessary to retrieve the ambient location pieces of sound information that would indicate position and depth, both across width and depth wise, would not be present without being able to retrieve that at the frequencies where it's present. So on the right hand side, you can see a proper setup for a stereo system, which forms an equilateral triangle. And then on the left hand side is just a little talk about what true or natural stereo sounds like. I've been into audio since I was a teenager and had many different stereo systems, but it wasn't until about 15 years ago that I actually heard a real stereo presentation. And this gentleman's house, his setup was a decent system, not terribly expensive, but it was revelatory insofar as the width of the stereo image, and this was a recording of the Boston Symphony Orchestra on 2-track tape, actually exceeded the outer edges of the speaker. Not greatly, but it was definitely noticeable. And the depth was the thing that amazed me, insofar as I was hearing instruments, particularly the percussion instruments in the orchestra, were coming from behind the back wall of his room, which was probably 10 feet from the where the speakers themselves were located. The speakers had totally disappeared. You were not listening to the speakers, but you were listening to what sounded like a, for want of a better term, a bubble of sound, the sound stage that I've heard spoken about in so many articles. And it was quite amazing. The other thing is, too, that a lot of what passes for stereo, particularly with jazz, rock, a lot of the early stuff, none of that is true stereo because it's not recorded in a situation where you have microphones picking up a performance, but instead people are in separate little boxes recording their voice or their guitar or something like that, and then they're pan potted into position, and then plate reverb is added to give it a pleasing sound. So with that being said, that's kind of the setup for what stereophonic sound is. It's not two speakers. It's actually the creation of an ambient sound field that gives the illusion of a real performance being performed in front of your ears. So with this picture here, we have a picture of the German magnetophone. This is the model K4 that they had used early on. And this was used for making some of the very first recordings that were in stereo. This model was used by Helmut Kruger, who was one of the engineers working at the Haus der Rundfunks, Reichsrundfunkgesellschaft, or the German Broadcasting Corporation, at their recording studio. And he would be trying out different techniques, and one of them was some of the stuff that he had read from people like Blumlein, who had indicated had some patents that were oriented towards stereo. And he was trying these out while they were making these recordings that were used to be broadcast over the air. And one of the things that he had done when they developed the stereo recording head, which I'll show you in a moment, was that they used a technique of having 3 condenser microphones, and these were the Neumann mics that would be positioned above and in front of the orchestra, a technique that was similarly used 10 years later, a little over 10 years later, by Mercury and RCA for their early stereo recordings, some of which are considered to be among the very best recordings even to this day. So here is the AEG R7 modified for stereo. The R7 was a major improvement over the K4. Did I say R7? I meant K7. It was a major improvement over the K4 insofar as they were able to synchronize the reels, and that allowed for a fairly high reduction in wow and flutter. And it also improved the tape handling characteristics. This setup was used to record, it is estimated, between 250 and 300 stereo tape recordings, which were primarily classical, but not exclusively. There were actually recordings made of the top German, what we would call a dance orchestra, like a Glenn Miller or Artie Shaw. However, all of those tapes have been lost. Here we have an image of the stereo head that was used to make the recordings. This was developed by Edward Schuler, and it was primarily used as a means to induce negative feedback into one coil while the other coil was being energized to magnetize. This was an experiment in attempts to linearize the output and improve the frequency response. Negative feedback was becoming quite the deal, of course, in the 30s. But This was also modified so that it could be used to create actually a stereo recording with the two signals being picked up by the three arrayed condenser microphones that were then fed into a mixer and appropriately added to the different spots. One of the things that's kind of interesting is that while this would have been commercially the way that stereo recordings would be made into the future, early stereo recordings for people who've had access to those tapes would often use two mono heads that were staggered. And those were some of the first stereo recordings that were available to the public that you could buy. And then later on, they went to the inline, as you see with this particular arrangement here. So here's a picture of the House of Rundfunks. This was located in Berlin, and this is in 1938. Many, if not most of the orchestral recordings were made here in this hall. And as you can see from the foreground image, that they had many chairs so that these would be populated by people listening while these recordings were being made. On April 6, 1943, the first stereo recording on tape was made. And as you can read with the Berlin Radio Orchestra, this particular picture isn't from that recording session. This is actually a recording of Furt Wangler conducting Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on the Führer's birthday. However, interestingly enough, they have located and made available a copy of this very first stereo recording that was made in Germany. And here I'd like to play just a little sample, this will work, of the of one of the recovered stereo. Oops, looks like it's not going to do it that way. Let me drop out and see if we can get this to run. See if everybody can hear this okay.
Can't hear it, Randy.
Yeah, it's still loading. Anytime I grab something off of YouTube, it seems like it takes forever. Okay, we're going to play. I think we're going to have to pass. Oh, wait a minute. Let's try this again. You'll notice the spaciousness of this sound, and certainly the quality is right up with what is even being produced to these days. Note the date. That would be, what's that, September 29th, 1944. So let's jump back out of this and get back to our presentation. My little computer does not like all of this stuff I've got loaded onto it. All right, there we go. I don't know if you all had a chance to hear that, or those who had their system set up for such. That's quite an amazing sound. Oh, look, now it wants to run. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So here's an image that I found on the internet. Helmut Kruger is all the way to the far left. This would be a recording session that is being taken. You can see the man to the far right. He's actually reading the score as the recording is being made. And they have a talkback mic right there in between the two middle persons that would be talking to the conductor as they were making these recordings. At this particular point in time, almost all the recordings that were being made in mono, and Helmut was actually bootlegging onto the system with his stereo, experimental stereo, if you will, recordings. Although from that last recording, if that's an experiment, that's a hell of a good job of making it work. Okay. Now, during the time that a lot of these recordings were being made, 43 to 45, Germany was getting their socks knocked off with all the Allied bombing. And so they moved their stereo recordings that they had been made to the Kosten Spa, which had an kind of a dark history to it when the SS had taken over. Then the facilities were used primarily for convalescing soldiers, and they had a staff of doctors and such, and they would set up Dr. von Braumühl, I'm sure I'm absolutely butchering his name, would actually have set up a stereo system playing back these tapes for the people there as well as the general public. And at the bottom, you can sit there, you can read the, well, let me go ahead and read it for you. In order to recreate the full breadth of playback, 2 channels, which are the result of a few space microphones, 3, are played back using 2 separated loudspeakers. It's an unqualified success. Any disturbing background noise, which especially is troubling in a phonograph recording of a piano, is suddenly gone. Also, subtle orchestral parts come through with transparency and form so that one has the complete illusion, the key point, the complete illusion of the separation of their instruments in the room. And also the position of these instruments in a forward and back dimension. You get a 3-dimensional effect. So that these were, as these had been moved down, the tapes had been moved down and were being used at the spa and being played to the participants there, the audience there, if you will. That was actually an unfortunate situation because these tapes would get soon overrun by this area would soon get overrun by the Soviets, and the tapes basically disappeared. So after the fall of Berlin, of course, the Soviets, as well as the Americans, were taking the spoils of war and shipping them off to their respective countries. And it was thought of at the time that all of the recordings were lost. The Germans didn't really care at that point. They were just trying to find something to eat. So losing, the recordings that they had really did not interest them in the early years after the end of the war. However, some were starting to pop up on the Melodia label. This was the German label, the Russian Soviet label. The Soviets were the ones who had picked up all of the tapes because they were primarily in their sector. And then later on in the 60s, they were reissuing these on LP over their own label. As noted, a large cache of these were repatriated back to Germany in '93, but only 5 of the more than 250 stereo recordings have been found to date. The one that I will play for you at the very end was one that was didn't come from the Soviets, was actually found somewhere else. So unfortunately, a lot of this stuff got lost. It still may be out there. It still may show up at some point in time. So this is an image of one of the boxes that was used to store the tapes. And you had, in this case here, this was a recording in the 3rd act of Gotterdammerung. And this was recorded in November of 1944. And it was actually still being edited. Well, excuse me, it had been edited for broadcast on April of 1945, 1 month before the Soviets were to take over the House des Rundfunks. So the Germans were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, making these recordings that they would then broadcast over their network. Here's this famous picture of a pair of liberated magnetophones. These are Model K4s. Jack Mullins, who would go on to work with Ampex and create, you know, basically the backbone of the recording industry, is shown there on the far left. You can see the two. I do not believe this was a stereo setup here. This looks to be two separated of the K4s and not synchronized to be a stereo working magnetophone. In fact, stereo as a recording medium on tape would not show up until the early 50s, almost 10 years after the Germans had perfected it. And in short, everything we listen to today owes a debt to the magnetophone. And that's why some of the stuff I said at the beginning of recording on optical film, recording, just having transmissions of live microphones from a performance area to an auditorium. These were stereo indeed, and these would be the earliest versions of stereo. However, they did not result in the birth of stereo recording as we know it today. So let's see if I can get this one to run. This is an excerpt from a tape that was made in 1944. And I think I'm going to have to drop out, go to our regular slide so I can run this. And this one is with Herbert von Karajan. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Let's see if it'll work for us. Okay, as you can hear once again, great depth, a good stereo image, very minimally processed, 3 microphones, all the hallmarks of what will become some of the great stereo recordings from our from the future, from particularly from Mercury, Everest, and RCA. All right, so let's pause here. On to the next slide. I don't know what you might be listening to on your end. Here on my little tablet is even apparent that it's, oh, what do we got going on here? There we go. Okay, is that the last one? Your internet connection is unstable. All right, let's see if we can get this last recording. This is one of the famous recordings and one of the very few full recordings that have been located. And in this case here, this is a concert of the 5th Piano Concerto by Ludwig van Beethoven with Walter Gieseking. This was recorded at the Haus der Rundfunks, and in this recording, you can hear bombing and anti-aircraft sounds in the background at particular points where the piano is soloing in the first movement. So I'm going to go ahead and run that and give you a chance to listen to. Now, the first part is going to be, which happens around 2 minutes, 30 seconds, is going to be hard to hear. You have to really listen carefully for that. At the 5:44 mark, it becomes very clear that there's anti-aircraft action going on as they're making these. It's really quite an astounding portrait of what was going on and the response that was happening in Germany at this time. So let's see if we can run this one. And if you have problems hearing this, you can easily find this one all over YouTube. Once again, the clarity of the recording is really astounding, and the depth. This is a live recording. So let's see if we can hear the first parts. I'm going to move this up to close to where the bombing will go off in the background. Let's see if you can hear this. Oh, come back here. All right. I'm going to drop this out and see if we can get to the green. It's not allowing me to forward through. Try this again here. It's very hard, very faint to hear in this particular portion. But let's move up to the anti-aircraft fire, which becomes a little more easy to distinguish. You can hear the double boom of the anti-aircraft fire. Could anybody hear that? Let's go back to that again. Right there, you just heard it. And again. The double boom, 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 boom. So with that, that's the last slide. We have my references. I just wanted to make one comment before we open up to everyone so that they can ask away questions or continue on with the meeting. I actually got interested in this about 10 years ago, maybe, yeah, I'd say about 10 years ago when I inadvertently ran across this idea of the birth of stereo recording, and that it had happened in Germany during World War II. In putting together this presentation, the material that I had seen on the internet, which was in great depth and included a lot of information about the two gentlemen that were involved the most in this, I could not find it. It was totally unavailable on the internet. There was lots of little bits and blurbs and this and that. And even a 1993 presentation that was done by the AES in Germany, that was more oriented towards a lot of the electronics, the microphones, the amplifiers, the machines, but not as much towards the actual stereo recordings and the history and what became of them. That material has just basically vanished. And that's why I think it's important that we when we find something like this, that we put it together in some fashion that is not as volatile as the internet, because internet sites are disappearing left and right, and with them they take down a lot of amazing and fascinating information that we will maybe never see again. So with that, that will end the presentation. And if anybody has any questions.
Randy, thank you very much. Just one question from on the chat. Hale had the question, are you talking about middle 1930s or circa 1940s? Circa 1940.
This would have been from 1943 to 1945.
Great. Tom Shear has a comment. He has a lot of old Deutsch gramophone recordings with Karajan conducting. Let's see. There was a question. Should I a comment by Bill Cohn saying that Zoom unfortunately compresses the audio, so we may have not been able to hear completely through Zoom. But Tom Shear said that he heard the bombing like a thump on his headphones.
Yes, I think in the very first part, where it's about 2 minutes, 30 seconds into that recording, you will hear a thump, a couple of thumps, and those are probably bombs being dropped. Whereas the recording segment around 5 minutes, 44 seconds, it's very distinctive anti-aircraft fire, the characteristic boom, boom that you normally associate with anti-aircraft. You get actually, that comes in pretty obviously. But you're right. I don't know how much Zoom compresses the audio. I could easily hear it here from the recording that I listened to on YouTube. So if for those who didn't hear it, I would say just go out and look for it on YouTube, and it's readily available. And it's basically talks about, you know, bombing during recording in World War II Germany. If you use something like that, you'll find the information. Any other questions? I guess you should have put on your headphones, Tom.
Could I, Randy?
Yes. How you doing, Paul?
Okay, I just want to let you know that I have a copy of the report done by the British Intelligence Objective Subcommittee at the end of World War II. You know, after the war, the Allies, the Russians, everybody sent groups into Germany to try to determine what the conditions of science was at that time in Germany. And this thing comes out of the records of the Bell Labs and is a copy of that entire report. It's 120 pages long, and it has dozens of pages translated from the original German text. And it is not so much the social aspects of the recordings and all that as you've presented, but it's got a huge amount of technical detail, the schematic diagrams, detailed frequency response curves, charts, all this stuff, including chemical compositions of the tape and all that kind of thing. If you are interested in seeing this at some time, I'd be happy to share it with you.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. And your comment actually brings up a couple of interesting parts that I didn't really cover in this presentation. The Germans basically created the whole ball of wax. They created the tape that was being used. Nobody else had created anything to that degree, particularly with the cellulose acetate first, but they also had created mylar tape that was being used at the same time period for some of their recordings because the cellulose acetate was degrading a little bit faster than they had anticipated.
And this report contains all that as well on the tape itself, because obviously without the tape, you can't do this.
Exactly. Previous attempts with paper tape just was, you know, a joke.
It's another interesting aspect, though, that during the war, the Germans actually used the high quality recording capability that they had that was not understood at all. They would actually take
record a speech that Hitler would make, literally fly it to another city and broadcast it from there using the technology of the day. And the British would monitor this very carefully and determine, because of the quality of the transmission, that he had to be at the location the tape was being played from. So they were using the basic tape recording capability, and even in here, they're 50 to 10,000 hertz with a 45 dB signal to noise ratio is what they were doing, which is very close to modern tape recording. But anyway, the Germans were using this for a lot of different stuff as well at the time, and some of that is related in here.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because the British and the Americans thought the Germans had some super aircraft, because they couldn't believe how, he's giving a speech in Berlin and an hour later he's giving a speech in Vienna, and they're like, how the hell did he get there in an hour? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and the Germans were using that quality recording capability to a great advantage in trying to fox Allied intelligence, as you said.
Ah, interesting.
There's a lot going on, and according to this, originally the intent was as a dictaphone for the first experiments in tape recording, was as a dictaphone. That's what they started wanting to do. Anyway.
Yes, and that was actually being sold in 1938 in the U.S., but it just didn't have the quality at the time, and nobody glommed onto it. Certainly not the U.S. market.
The big deal in here is the big light came on was biasing.
Yes.
And the method that the Germans used to bias the tape, and that was the breakthrough that really made it, all the rest of it, possible. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I believe that we were going to actually have a presentation at some times on the magnetophone. So I didn't want to go too far into the magnetophone itself with the high frequency AC bias and the various models that they were using. But the Germans did develop the whole system, the condenser mics that would later be used for high quality recordings in the US, because we did not have the microphone technology that was even close to what the Germans had developed in Germany through Neumann's work. And those same microphones, or versions of them, are being used even to this day to do recordings.
Yeah, according to this report, the first time the Allies really understood what was going on was when the Allies overran Radio Luxembourg, and they were trying to get the machines out of there, and the Germans were on the way out so fast that was, as far as I understand from this, was the first time they captured a complete operational magnetophone system.
Yes. A lot of the magnetophones that were being found by Jack Mullins were still using DC bias. It was later that Jack was inadvertently told, hey, go here. And he says, all right, let me go there, see what it is. It's probably just another bunch of these DC bias machines. And then, he goes into this building, broadcast studio in Germany, and they said, hey, I've heard about this and some super quality sound, and the German officer present says, "Jawohl, let me play some tape." And so his assistant comes in, clicks his heels, puts on the tape, and Mullins' jaw hit the floor, because this was the sound quality that they had been hearing through monitoring their broadcasts of German radio, and just couldn't believe how good the sound was coming out of this.
Randy, we've got a couple of comments and a question.
Sure.
Bob says, great presentation, Randy. You've inspired this fellow tape enthusiast. Well done. Greg also mentions Jack Mullen discovered these tape machines after the liberation of Germany and brought them back to Bing Crosby. Bob comes back and says, Randy, who made the recorder you show on the MAARC news meeting email announcement?
Oh, that was an AEG, so that was a K4 model of the tape recording. Now that was probably a mono, but that would have been AC bias probably, and would have given them the quality of recordings that they were making at the time. I should note that while there were 250 to 300 stereo recordings, there were many, many more mono recordings. They were recording around the clock, basically, in Germany, and so there are many of those are recordings are still available. Time to end. Can we talk more during chatting at end? Yes, John, we certainly can. So Dome, if you want to hand that back to John, we'll wrap this up. I wasn't sure it was going to be terribly long, but there you go.
John, you got it.
It's all yours, John.
Thank you, Randy. That was really cool stuff, and I could hear the anti-aircraft guns pounding.
Oh, so you could hear it?
Just barely.
Just barely, exactly.
If you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have noticed. But since you did, that's pretty dramatic stuff. Thanks very much, Randy. And we'll let Randy talk some more at the end during the chatting at the end. I want to make a few comments about the auction that we'll have next week, next Sunday at 1 o'clock, same BAT Zoom channel. And when we set it up, we knew that there was that people, since we hadn't had auctions for quite a while, we figured there was a huge backlog of radios and test equipment and stuff to sell. That tsunami has not materialized for the auction for next week. So we can take some more items if you would like to sell something. Send a photo and a description to auction@maarc.org, and we have to have everything up at the National Electronics Museum by Wednesday at latest, because they're going to make a preview video of all the items in the auction, and we'll put that on the website so you can have a chance to get a good view of the items that are for sale. They're also putting together a catalog, which we will have on the website, which will have some nice, and the people who've been submitting items have given us some good pictures that give a really, front and back and top and bottom, and good angles so you can see what you're buying, because we can't have any on-site inspection, obviously. So if you have anything that you would like to send, send an email with a photo and a description to auction@maarc.org. And I welcome all of our ARCI guests. You're welcome to join the auction. You have to, if you want to bid, you have to be pre-registered. All MAARC members will be automatically pre-registered by the auction crew. You don't have to worry. If you're a MAARC member, don't worry. You'll be registered and they'll give you a number when you join Zoom. If you're not a member, then send an email to auction@maarc.org and put March registration in the subject line. Say March registration, and send it to auction@maarc.org. We'd love to have you join us. And if you live at a distance, we meaning Eric Stenberg, has offered to ship items after the auction to you. So if you can't get to BWI area to pick them up, that's okay. We'll send them to you. We won't know the shipping costs ahead of time, but there are some really nice radios in there in the auction. Lou Harry, a longtime collector, passed away recently. He was also a docent at the museum, and Brian brought some really nice items from his collection. There's some items from the Felder collection. Brian's bringing some that were donated to the museum to help the museum raise funds. Jeff Shear is bringing several items, and Dom Giglio and Bill Goodwin has put in the auction a Hickok Cardmatic tube tester. And there's a whole lot of other stuff. And so check the website for the video preview and the catalog, which will be up Friday or Saturday before the auction.
John, there's a question. When will we be When will we be told to bring our items to the museum?
Go ahead and do it now. We changed the procedure around a little bit, so call the museum and make an appointment and take it to them as soon as you can. Thank you for asking. Who is that? Yes. And any other questions about the auction? It's good stuff. Oh, and you can pay for if you're out of town or if you haven't been to one of the auctions before, you'll make the payments through PayPal. So we've got it. Our auction crew has spent a lot of time to put together a procedure to make it as easy and simple for you as possible. And that'll be, the auction itself will start about 1 o'clock on Sunday, next to Sunday, but please come on Zoom early to make sure we can attach your bidder number to your Zoom identity. And we will replay the preview video before the auction starts so that the auction itself can go more quickly and more smoothly. So try to log in or do log in early. If you log in late, the auction crew may be too busy to attach your number to your name and you may not be able to bid. That's not a threat, it's just
Hey, John,
the way it works. Yes, Tom.
I know you probably don't know how long the preview video will last because it depends on how much is in the auction, but do you have an approximate idea of when we should be on to hear it all?
I will send another e-blast out before the auction and I'll try to have give the length of the auction or the length of the preview. My guess is that we'll have around 50 items. So it'll be at least a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. We don't want it to go forever, but.
So we'll be looking to get on Zoom around 12 then.
That would be very good.
Yep.
Thank you for asking. Okay, so now the formal part of the meeting is ending. So you can all unmute yourselves and talk to each other and talk about the wonderful radio that got away, or when you have for sale, or some technical difficulty you'd like some advice on, or some technical advice you'd like to give, or just how the heck you're doing. And so chat away and keep your tubes warm.
Okay, and I'll stop recording now.
Now we can say anything we want.
That's right.
If anybody's been induced to get a reel-to-reel, I have one to give away if anybody wants. I just acquired it last week. So I think it's a Sony TC250 or something like that.
Does it work, Tom?
I haven't even taken it out of the box. I don't know. I have the big brother to it that I bought overseas 50 years ago.
Hey, Tom, what kind of audio are you using? You're really, really sharp. It sounds good.
Oh, well, thank you. I've been taking voice lessons. Let me look. I don't know.
It must be the mic.
Sounds like a response peak in the mid-range.
Yeah.
If you recognize that symbol, I think they're actually for video gamers, but I bought it at Best Buy before they closed a few months ago, the one near me, and I used it for Zoom sessions.
Has a great sound to it.
Well, thanks. I have a cheaper one too. That's Bluetooth. You can walk around with it, like, you know, if you want to be on stage or something like that, it works good for that.
So, getting back to that stuff you talked about, when I was looking up a lot of the stuff on the internet regarding this, a lot of conflicting information. Some people said that the Russians didn't really use the technology that much. Other people are saying that much like Goebbels, the Soviet ministry realized the value in propaganda, and so they were all in on these tapes and tape recordings. And apparently in Prague, they found 50,000 reels of tape. A lot of it was propaganda from the Nazis, of course, but then they would take and wipe it, erase it, and then reuse it for their own propaganda. And it took them quite a while before they could spool up to their own tape producing facility. So there was a lot of reusing of tape.
There was a lot of really dark stuff too, because the Nazis had recorded some of the great orchestras in some of the places they had conquered, taped the recordings, and then sent all the musicians to the concentration camps.
Oh my God.
And some of those recordings were released by Telefunken and Capitol after the war on 78. So I've got a couple of those albums. And
wow.
One of the favorites of Adolf Hitler, Furtwängler and Ernest Sach. And I have some of the Ernest Sach recordings that were actually re-released by London on 10-inch vinyl. She had a voice that was just unbelievable. And she actually toured the United States in 1951 and gave a bunch of concerts. But there's a lot of really dark, nasty stuff, which you would expect of the Nazis, given their determination to exploit that technology that they had.
Yeah, one of the things I found also that was interesting, I didn't mention this, was a couple of the first audio files was Adolf Hitler and Goebbels. They both had stereo systems from AEG to play these tapes back. And they would often use the recordings to, and these were also, I think I mentioned, they were in stereo systems, and they would often use the tape machines in mono just to practice their speeches.
Yeah.
Randy, have you ever heard of a Hafler circuit?
Yes.
I had, it's where you, others probably haven't, but it's where you have a regular stereo setup, and then you take a lead from the left and right and hook those to a third speaker and put it in the middle. And on some because left and right, when you take the left minus the right and the right minus the left, you actually cut out something in the center.
Yes.
And that puts that back in. And I had two instances that just blew my socks off. One was a recording, I can't remember the singer's name, but it was recorded in a cabaret. And it sounded nice. But then when I put that Hafler circuit with just a third little speaker, it's like, man, she was just sitting right there in front of me.
Presence. Wow.
Yes. And then on another thing, I was listening to the World Series in like 1984 on stereo TV. So I thought, well, let me just see what happens when I hook that up. And suddenly we could hear sounds from the bleachers that were so realistic that we went to look outside the window in the courtyard to see if somebody was yelling out there. And when I disconnected it, you couldn't hear it at all because it was, right from that center band. It was a really cool thing.
Is that the way they use those surround speakers? That you can use a surround speaker as a center channel and make it and create sounds that seem to be coming from behind instead of up ahead.
It can be, but that would be a typical ping pong effect. That's not real stereo. That's just sound effects.
Is
but
that binaural? Is that also called binaural?
No, binaural is totally different. Binaural is recordings that were made to be played back in headphones. If you're listening to stereo on headphones, you are not listening to stereo. It can't be, because that's not how it was mixed. Binaural recordings you can't listen to on speakers to get the effect, because they were recorded and mixed to be played back through headphones, in which case the sound is, it would be like you'd be looking around, wait a minute, I hear something over there. Let me take my headphones off, like John just mentioned.
Okay.
The effects are quite astounding. It is quite amazing when you have a properly set up system, how realistic, how much it sounds like it's something really in your room, making music or sound. But yes, going back to Bill's question, The hole in the center effect, hole in the middle effect. Yes, early on recordings with Mercury and RCA, they were using 2 microphones, and then Mercury quickly went to 3 microphones to fill in the hole in the center, as did RCA. The Germans had that from the get-go. They had the 3 microphones spaced out properly to pick up all the information and lose the middle hole in the center effect.
You know, it's kind of nasty, but we're talking about all this when we're getting old enough so we can't hear this stuff very well anyway. That's another issue we have to deal with.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of things we can't do as we're getting older, but I'm not giving up yet.
Neither have I. I mean, we're all still working at it or we wouldn't be here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, you know, we did have 4-channel records for a while too, and they were actually recorded to have 4 channels matrixed together. The only problem with those are that the recorded different signals or whatever they use to pull out and decode the 4 channels is a really high frequency. I think it's like somewhere around 45 kilohertz. And in a standard stereo turntable playback, it basically, after a couple of spins around, it just wipes that signal right off.
Yeah, it doesn't last long.
Nope.
That's like a CD sampling rate.
What's that?
It's kind of like a CD sampling rate, right? 44 kilohertz.
It wasn't that. It was, I want to say 45, but it might have been as high as 75 kilohertz. They put in these matrixing signals so they could mathematically decode all the information that has been encoded into 2 channels. That has been into 2 channels, but with the proper decoding network. And there were 2 that were competing. CBS had one, the SQ, and I think Panasonic had the QS, and they would have these matrix decoders. And I'm not sure if the Dynaco quad adapter did this as well. It may have just been kind of playing games, but with the SQ and QS system, you could get real 4-channel, if properly set up.
Okay.
Sound, just like if you'd heard it properly recorded and mixed in a studio.
Wow.
And you're right, Tom, Steve, I can't hear above 10 kilohertz either. We found that out in the electronics lab when we were doing some oscillator experiments. The young girls in the class could easily hear up to 15, but once it hit 10 kilohertz, boom, I heard nothing.
I used to be able to hear up to 15, but not anymore. TV horizontal oscillators back in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, I used to be able to walk by a house where they're watching TV and I could hear the horizontal oscillator out in the street.
Yeah.
That's my same story. I think we're all there.
Hey, Randy, this is Bob. They're releasing the master 4-channel recordings now on SACD discs.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of those.
Do you? Yeah, I just bought the complete Chicago, the rock band Chicago's 4-channel discs, and they're amazing. Actually, they're DVD-A, I think, DVD audio. But anyway, they rock in your little home theater. You know, it's just very fun. Little odd to have the drummer in the back left corner or whatever, but you know, they sound fabulously clean.
Yes, there's a number of those that I've heard that they've recorded early, like maybe there's a couple of rock bands that are very famous for having done some 4-channel stuff. And some of those recordings, now that they have the technology to be able to actually present it, like you say, DVD audio or SACD, it's quite fun to listen to those because the ambience that you get from being in that is just really immersive.
It is.
It takes you back to the 70s, I should say.
Yes, it does. Oh man.
Someone just mentioned television a minute ago with the horizontal and listening to the signal out in the street. I've just inherited a whole bunch of colored TV material for color signal generators. I got 3 or 4 of them, all kinds of stuff. And is there anybody in the club that can use that? You know, I'm not looking to make money off it. I just want to get rid of it.
I have a friend, and I should put this out here. They're actually looking for the old TV boxes, you know, for the big 21 and 25-inch black and white or even color TVs. They're just looking for the cabinets they came in, because apparently they make dog and cat houses out of them. So they don't care about the electronics. All they want is the cabinets.
What are they trying to channel their cat's mind?
There you go. What about Roy? He's into TV repair restorations.
Yeah, a lot of those cabinets are no longer available. I mean, you know, that stuff really went out probably 20 years ago. It's rare that you see at a club meeting somebody bring in a big cabinet like that you could make a dog's house or a cat house out of. But apparently it's a rather popular thing to do now with the kids these days, the young
So,
people these days.
If you do see any of those old consoles show up, the ones with the round color CRT, the 21 FJP22, save those CRTs. Those are getting like hen's teeth to find.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. The 21 FJP22 and its relative family. Those were produced early 60s to about 65, 66.
Hey, look at Domi. He just ducked into his doghouse.
There he is.
Hey guys, this is Joanna. Roy was interested in the TV literature, and thanks, Paul, for mentioning his name. We forget who was that person who was offered to provide that information. Who was that? Does anyone remember? Domi, I like your television set. We're silent.
That was Tom Scherer, right?
Tom, were you the ones that had the television stuff?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of it.
Okay, well, Roy's interested. What's your,
I live down in Midlothian, just southwest of Richmond, about 21 miles. Are you up in the DC area?
Yes, we are.
Well, maybe I could talk Jeff into leaving it at his house and you can pick it up there.
Okay, all right. Let me have a number for you, Tom.
804 839 4495. I also have a color tube rejuvenator machine that I think Jeff wants that, so that's already spoken for. I also got boxes and boxes of TV tubes from the same guy. He got out of television repair and he had all this stuff, and he's selling a house and he had to just give all this stuff away. So being that I got it for free, I can't sell it, you know, I got to give it away.
Okay, Tom. Roy's going to be in touch with you, talk to you more in detail. Thank you for sharing that information.
Okay, Joanna, take care.
You know, they burn those cabinets up at Cutstown in a bonfire. Yep. Anybody that doesn't want them throws it on a pile and they light it up.
Console radios especially, right? NASA?
Yeah, they're consoles.
Yeah, I'm thinking that, well, this since I'm inoculated, I'm looking at probably getting the cuts down, and I'll keep a lookout for those while I'm up there.
Yeah, they're usually out there in the back by the food vendor stand.
Right.
Which, by the way, has some real good hamburgers.
Oh, yeah. Although that, if you go in town, there's a place there that has good hamburgers. That little town of Cutstown, there's some pretty decent restaurants in there.
What's the name of that hamburger joint in Cutstown?
Oh, I can't tell you. I know where it is because it's in my mind's eye. But
well,
they also do barbecue.
They have that college up there, and they would have to have some good places for the kids to go. So maybe they even run it or work there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Tom.
Cutstown University.
Place we always hang out is the Starlight Cafe out there on the interstate where 100 goes under the interstate.
I like to hang out in the town because that's where all the young students are.
I know, but you can't do that, Randy.
Old man.
That sounded very strange.
And don't be afraid to try the food stands inside the building there at Kutztown too. A lot of the stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the normal vendor that we normally have at Kutztown will not be there this time.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's all because of COVID and stuff like that. We're making arrangements for some food trucks, and we also have alerted the indoor vendors to expect, the radio players descending on them.
I would expect that the next Kutztown meet is going to be pretty big because a lot of the people in our age range are getting their vaccines.
Yes, well, actually, last September when we had the Kutztown meet, I would say we had at least 85% of our attendees still show up. We were in the height of the pandemic then. So we do expect a lot. And they've had train shows there and they've been crowded. They had a cannabis festival there. And in 3 days, they had over 10,000 people there.
Oh my God. The university opened up for that one, I guess.
Actually, even the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania had a display there, and the state police were directing traffic. You couldn't find a parking space on the property. They were walking from town out to Renninger's.
Sounds like Domi had a good time there. Look at him clapping.
Those must have been the people who could hear the higher frequencies.
Oh,
they certainly did after smoking, I'm sure.
Yeah, really.
I got on the meeting today a little late, but when I got on, someone was talking about Helicrafters receivers.
Yes.
Who was that? Was that John?
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
John Bauer.
Yeah, I've worked on a couple of them, and one thing I noticed is a lot of them have that silver mica disease in the IF cans.
Yeah, where you can't get to it. It's a mess.
Yeah.
And another thing, if you're working on some of those receivers, they have gimmicks in them. So if you see a couple of wires twisted together that don't go anywhere, don't untwist them because it's a capacitance thing.
Gimmick capacitor.
Wow. Yeah, I'm working on a Westinghouse for a customer right now, and it's got a lot of World War II surplus capacitors, but they look like they're ceramic, but they're really paper. They're tubular.
One thing I wanted to, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody's had experience with those or seen them before.
One of the things I kind of wanted to bring up, I don't know for those who've been to Kutztown more often than I have, one of the things that seems to be heating up on with the young people in electronics are retro computers, particularly the earlier 8-bits like the Commodore 64 and Apple computers, and the later 16-bit like the Amiga, Atari STs, and the early Macintoshes. Do many of those types of things show up at Kutztown?
Computers don't show up at Kutztown. They're not allowed.
Oh, they're not allowed. Too bad, because that's actually where the
I realize that, and I know there's a whole series of collectors in that, but the one of the things we try to avoid is anyone that brings a computer monitor, we tell them to take it home because we can't dispose of it.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to pay someone to take those away.
Interesting.
There's a bunch of there is actually an old computer group and a museum here in Roswell.
Oh,
and
really?
They have their own meetings and they all get together and talk about old computers. And you know what? They look just like we do.
Oh yes, yes. There is one over in Jersey over at Info.
That good looking, huh?
Computer.
They probably have worn out thumbs or something.
We offered them like a PC and they say that's too new.
Wow.
There's a guy on the internet on YouTube, 8-bit guy who collects computers and has Commodore 64s, 128s, and all kinds of
Yeah, Commodore 64, that is too new for these guys.
Oh,
Does
really?
anybody here remember the old Mod 40s that were made by Western Electric?
No, haven't heard of that one.
Oh yeah, they had a
No.
little send receive key with a little red light on it, and you'd hold that one down and hit another key, and you could do a disco dance thing with whatever you had on your screen. And when we were waiting for the system to come back up, we thought that was a lot of fun, 50, 40 years ago, 45 years ago.
Huh.
There's
Well, there
one
certainly
guy,
is a lot of older people like ourselves who have been have used these vintage computers, but you're also seeing a lot of college age and just over that age in the 30s and early 40s that are really into the retro computer. I think part of it is childhood nostalgia, and part of it is also because they're easier to understand and work on. And as Steve said here, they're easier to do assembly programming on.
Good old assembler. Remember the old shift left, double algebraic?
I don't want to. I don't want to put a damper on anything, but does anybody ever think about what's going to happen after they pass on with regard to all the junk they have, all the stuff, I should say? I'm working on that now, trying to figure out what to dispose of. So,
Time to get eBay working.
Yeah,
that's all you can do is just get rid of as much of it to people who care about it as you can. That's all.
Exactly, Paul.
Yeah,
If you got a lot of stuff, good stuff, Shulman Auctions will come and pick it up.
yeah. Oh, you mean the auction place in Ohio?
I think he's out west. Estes is I forget the guy's name, his first name that used to run it, but he died quite suddenly. And I think his brother-in-law or somebody has taken it over.
His son has taken over.
Huh? His son
has taken over. Cletus has taken over for.
I spoke to CL something. Cletus, right. Yeah, he said you just have to inventory all of them and send them a list, and then they'll take it from there. They'll come in and pick up the items and wrap them. Domi Sanchez talked about that in one of the Radio Age articles that he did.
Well, guys, this was fun. I've got to unfortunately take off.
Randy, thank you. That was very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I guess we'll see everybody again next week at the auction.
Yes, indeed.
I don't know, but if you guys do the Oktoberfest, I'm coming up.
Yeah, aren't we all?
I don't know that there's going to be enough room on that whole road if do it out there at the old Nike site.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we may open. There's been some talk about opening that up maybe in June. Is that right, Domi?
John, do you have any insight to that?
We are waiting for the county. Anne Arundel County allows meetings at this time, but not enough people. They don't allow large enough meetings for us to have one out there.
Well, even if you can limit it to people that have been vaccinated, I mean, is there any way to control that? I guess not.
You get a vaccination card when you get vaccinated. You can show that.
I think it's numbers.
Yeah, it's when there's enough people vaccinated in general, and the county says it's okay to start doing meetings again, we'll be there. And we'll keep you posted on the website and through our e-blasts.
Yeah, I just got mine a couple hours ago, 3 hours ago. So it's nappy time for me.
There you go. I'm heading for Sevierville next weekend, Sevierville, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
They warned me about all the traffic, and I was looking at a map. It's only about 25 miles from Dollywood.
Oh. Also the home of
It's over in Nashville area.
And Tensac. See you guys all next week.
Talking about, not to change the subject, but you were talking about silver mica disease in some of these old halocrafters. I have an S38D and an S38E. Both of them had silver mica disease in their IF cans. And really, I just took the cans apart and removed the fixed mica capacitor that had silver mica disease and substituted, I believe, 100 picofarad ceramic capacitor.
Yeah.
Those cans are slug tuned, so you don't have to put a variable capacitor there, and it worked out fine. They put the selectivity wasn't as good as the original, because I believe those ceramic capacitors have more Qs than the original mica capacitor in the can. But who cares? The thing worked out fine anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I'm going to let you bow us out, and with your permission, I'll conclude everyone's session.
All right. It's good talking to you guys again.
Good to see you all. See you next week at the auction.
See you all.
See you next week.
Yep.
Meeting all.
Take
Be
care.
good. Be careful.
All right, ending the Zoom session in 5,
This will
3.
This will be posted on YouTube very soon, by the way.
It's Facebook. It is on Facebook Live.
Facebook.
And it will be posted on the MAARC website in a few days. So again, resuming countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.